Hello again, my people. This is part 2 of the introduction to the Mal'ta Buret culture. Unfortunately, I had to cut the video in half in order to get it uploaded when I did last night. I'm still having tech issues, as many of you know. So just to warn you, this starts rather abruptly because it's in the middle of a video I recorded. Enjoy. Their art style is unique. It's only been found outside of the sites of this culture. It's only been found in one other nearby site. So they're unique in Malta. This is a very important bottleneck, it would seem, because again, these are the ancestors of the whole of the R lineage, as well as relatives of Amerindians and the Siberians. So it's a large portion of the world's population that has come from this small culture of pioneers out in Siberia. So, in the Upper Paleolithic, this period of the Late Stone Age, we have two types of art. We have something called mural art in Europe, which is the cave paintings, the paintings on the walls of caves and things that we know about. And then we have something called portable art, which is what we're going to come into a lot of the finds at this site. And the portable art are objects used in shamanism, sort of totemism. So we'll come on to. There are a lot of finds of Venus statues here, and they differ a little to the European statues, but it's the first find of the Venus statues in an early culture outside of Europe. So again, that Gravettian culture. So these are well carved, intricately carved objects made of bone ivory, antlers, and also at least one of the examples is made of stone. Though most of them are made of this, softer matter bone and antlers. So, as well as the Venus statues, they have statues depicting various birds, especially water birds, so ducks, geese, swans. And birds have an important part in this Siberian shamanism, which we'll come into. So, this is a Ket Shaman. Unfortunately, Ket Shamanism was prominent in the 30s. It was still very much alive. By the 60s, wasn't really practiced in any notable sense anymore. So, I mean, the Kets are a very minor group now. They're under 2,000, if I recall, and some of their groups of relatives are around 10,000. So they're small groups of people, but they're still about. Though they've lost a lot of their practices and been assimilated because of things that happened in the Soviet period, and obviously the time since. The Soviets, again, I don't want to get into the politics of it, but the Soviets designated them as kulaks, executed many of their shamans, and dispersed the peoples to some degree. So the Kant and the Mansi, we'll get onto their religion. It's very similar, they're neighbouring groups, and they're probably a good representative of what these people believed. What these people believed will have been in between their Siberian shamanism and what was to become Proto-Indo-European religion. So you could call it pre-Proto-Indo-European religion. And I'll go into that because I've studied Zoroastrianism in a lot of depth. I know about it and the Iranic paganism it came from. And I'll do my reading on this Siberian shamanism, and that will make for a great video. At least I'll enjoy it. My cultural videos haven't picked up so much, but we'll see. I'm sure we'll gather some followers who are interested. So again, water birds and the Venus statues. There are two types of these Venus statues, but I'll come on to that later. And the one is a little more like the European type, but still distinct, and the other is quite different. The water birds, again, they're important, and they're supposed to be messengers of the shaman, because like the world is made up into various realms, the realms above and the realms below in this Siberian shamanism, and the water bird traverses the waters of the world below as well as the earth and the sky above, just as the shaman must do in his duties. So, as well as this, there's this engraved mammoth tusk slab here, and it's interesting. It has a few figures. One is a mammoth, which you can see by the features, and wool seems to even be etched on it, so it's fairly detailed. And then another seems to depict snakes. Someone else has proposed that they may rather depict flowing rivers, like the basin, like the river that they lived upon the side of. There's a chap called Joseph Campbell who writes on the symbolism in these sites, and he talks about the importance of the serpent, the labyrinth, and the theme of rebirth, and then the sunbird and the shaman, the flight of the shaman, and the goddess, with her role of protectress of the hearth, he says, mother of man's second birth, and lady of wild things and of the food supply. So all of this will come back to when I talk about the shamanism. Now, the last section of this video, the Mal'ta Venus statues and the Venus statues of Buret here. Here are the Venus images. So there were 29 finds here. These are most of them depicted here. These are mostly carved of Mammoth Ivory. In the Buret section, which I'll show you in a moment as I talk more about this, you'll see there were 5, there are 4 shown in this depiction, and the 5th one is actually made of serpentine stone, which is very interesting. That's obviously a much harder material to work with, very different to work to the Mammoth Ivory that most of these are made on. So there are 2 forms of these Venus statues, as you'll be seeing in these images. The one is thin and delicate, a very feminine form. The other one is also very feminine, but with emphasized feminine features, so the breasts and buttocks, but more so the buttocks, whereas the breasts aren't emphasized as much as they are in a lot of the European Venus statues. So that's the difference. Here we have the more gracile figure, and we also have less emphasis of the chest in comparison with the European culture of a similar type. Also, these Venus statues here have all been sculpted with detail on their faces, whereas the faces haven't been detailed to a large degree in the European equivalents. These statues are all tapered towards the bottom so that they can be placed upright, and this again is more evidence that they were used as totemistic objects, shamanistic objects, so used in worship or ritual, or as spirit dolls, if you like, as are used sometimes in some cultures from around the world. There was a 2016 genomic study which showed, as I mentioned earlier, that the Mal'ta people have no genetic connection to the other people of the Gravettian people, or the people of the Gravettian culture proper of Europe, though they belong to a similar culture in terms of tool style. This image I've been showing here for the conclusion is very interesting. It's an ornate hairstyle that's an artistic impression of a hairstyle shown on one of these figurines. Quick correction, because I wondered as I listened back to it in the final edit, and I looked it up, and Mammoth Ivory is actually about 6 on the Mohs scale, whereas serpentine stone is only 5. So Mammoth Ivory is actually the harder of the 2 materials.